You're listening to the PT Pintcast, where smart people in healthcare come to make noise. Here's your host, Jimmy McKay.
Thanks, voice guy. Big thanks to Sarah Health, the remote care platform helping clinics boost revenue without adding staff. I like this about them too. They automate daily patient check-ins via text. Because if I got to download one more app, it's probably not happening. And then no more app means no more login, which is also good. A simple way to meet RTM requirements, improve follow-through, and actually get reimbursed for care between visits. Easy to set up, simple to use, and patients, they seem to love it. SarahHealth.com, S-A-R-A health.com. I know people named Sarah are very particular. Sarah with an H. S-A-R-A health.com. Our guest today, not new to this show, not new to the audience. She's been here. I think she was like episode 12 or 20, like something in the first 20. And she's been part of the profession for a long time, since this show is still finding its footing. I don't know if we found it yet, but we're still working on it. And we've told her origin story before: clinician, founder, builder, leader. But today isn't about really how she started. Today's about, and what you want to know, where are we now? And the big we is you listening or watching, looking at you, but also like the profession. So her organization has been doing this state of rehab therapy report, which was just a really good idea, still is. But I remember thinking about it and saying, yes, you have access to all these people who have similar problems. And let's figure out, not just by like sort of figuring out which way the wind is blowing, like actually asking them questions, data, to clearly paint a picture. Clinicians, leaders might be experiencing two very different realities inside the same clinics today. Maybe burnout isn't the full story. Maybe misalignment is. Ooh, is that foreshadowing? Yes, it's always foreshadowing. So she's back, friend of the show, co-founder of WebPT, and someone who's never been afraid to challenge this profession to do better. Heidi Janenga, welcome back for I don't even know how many times to the show, to the PT Pintcast. Heidi,
I stopped counting, but it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I watched a recent episode of Saturday Night Live. They give, I think it's the 5 Timers Club, like Steve Martin.
I need a jacket.
They get a jacket, like it's like smoking jacket. Steve Martin, Martin Short, Justin Timberlake. Like it's not like when you see who's in the 5 Timers Club, it's pretty legit. You have to be well beyond. We'll get to the jackets in the mail. I'll get my assistant.
I think you should do some sort of mug. Like you are the Pintcast, right? So it needs to be some kind of, cool mug.
That's what it is.
Just throwing it out there.
All right, good. All right, so let's get to this data, right? So You guys, how long have you been doing this, the state of therapy rehab report? You guys have been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, I want to say this is like year 12 that we've actually done it and pulled it together, created this beautiful report and published it for all of our members, but also to the public to really access this information and data.
It really shows, I mean, even for 12 years, where it used to be 25 years ago, I don't know, I'm making numbers up. If you had information, the goal was hoard it. And if you wanted it, you had to join. And then all of a sudden, somewhere, because of these things, smartphones, it then became the absolute opposite, which is the more you give away, like a boomerang, things come back. And It's like a bell curve, right? You got people who are never going to buy from you or use you. You got people who are already buying from you and who are lifers who are always going to buy from you. And then you're just thinking, it's the middle. The middle is a jump ball. What can I give to that middle to get them to go, let me see me in a different light? And you guys chose sort of the State of the Union report for PT and give it away.
Well, selfishly, it was really for us to understand the industry a little bit better, because a lot of where the data lay, I always got that wrong. It was behind firewalls, right? That you had to have either an APTA membership, which I do, but a lot of people don't. And so how do you get this information? And, frankly, we were one of the earliest organizations to really start talking more about the business side of PT and really how to run your business more efficiently, and not just only about the clinical information, clinical data that's going on with patient care.
Okay. All right. So for someone who hasn't read it yet, and we'll put the link in the show notes and how they can get it. What are things that now you can now look at a report like this and see similarities and differences? What are what are a couple findings that pop up that should make clinic owners pause? What is the signal in the noise for this 2025 report that just came out?
Well, you did sort of drop some breadcrumbs at your intro here. We are hearing a lot about burnout in the industry, and we know that there have been a lot of clinicians that have left patient care. They may still carry their license, but they're not actually treating patients, or they may have left the industry as a whole. And so this year, we really kind of wanted to dig a little bit deeper into what are the underlying causes of that. And we found a couple of things that were fairly glaring. And you mentioned it, like the audience that were able to take this survey were leaders, they were clinicians, and in that clinician bucket, there were more newer grads versus some seasoned individuals. And I think maybe top three sort of things that stood out was the sort of gap, or as you called it, and we've called it, this malalignment between leadership and, if you will, the working class, right? And I think for the most part, we became physical therapists. You go to school to become a physical therapist because you want to treat patients.
Yep.
And providers really cite the work itself, like getting my hands dirty, getting my patients, expressing my abilities and my ability to treat patients, is really what their top motivator is. While clinic leadership, thinks a lot of the burnout is that they're treating too many patients, and that they are really underestimating the providers really want to treat patients. It's just the how they're having to treat patients at this point in time. And that's a huge gap. It was like by a factor of 46%, where clinic leadership is underestimating the importance of the work itself, whereas the providers are saying, no, this remains my top motivator. It's not salary. It's not these other things. This still remains my top motivator. So that was the first thing. And then the second is really in the salary misconception. So owners and clinic leaders are consistently over-indexing on salary as the demotivator. Oh, we just can't pay people enough. And yet what clinicians and staff are reporting is that while salary still remains important, it's not our number one thing. Our number one thing is about the bureaucracy in a practice, or the lack of decision making, the poor working conditions in their eyes, meaning a little bit about work-life balance, and also just do they have the what they're seeing out there or experiencing and seeing at CSM, some of the latest and greatest in technology, or are they still, very small percentage, but are you still documenting on pen and paper, right? Some of these really obscure sort of working conditions that you wouldn't necessarily think still exist, but it is out there. The private equity funds that have come into the industry over the last 10 years, we have a lot of practices that are trying to scale, trying to get, multiple clinics, and even going from multiple clinics to a large number of practices. And so as clinics try and do scale, the administrative complexity often grows, which can lead to even higher levels of burnout and a decline in patient experience if it's not done well. And so I think, what we're seeing is this unfortunate, coming together of companies wanting to grow, which costs money to do, at the same time as you've got reimbursements continuing to decline. And so, when margins are lower, it's harder to grow, but you have this mandate to grow, and so you're going to push forward with what you're poised to do. But oftentimes leaving in the wake are some of the feel-good things that, are necessary, I think, at this moment from a retention standpoint, clinician experience, as well as patient experience.
Yeah, so let's go into that a little bit. There were a few presentations that were actually at CSM about generations. And I'm always interested in this, and we should always be interested in this, because these kids today, I feel like you could put that on a t-shirt, and in 1 minute you're the kid that's saying these kids today. The next minute you're the person saying these kids today. As the world changes, generations change, and what's important to those different generations is going to continually change. So the report showing clinicians are motivated by things like purpose, autonomy, meaning, and meaningful work. Yet sometimes leaders might assume, and again, we have this misalignment of an assumption and reality, that compensation might be their primary driver. Listen, we all want to get paid. We want to make sure we can pay rent and buy cornflakes. Important. So why does that disconnect persist? And why is someone who understands it and reads this report and acts on it going to have a better position, or going to probably do well in 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. So this is the inflection point that we talk about, right? If you don't truly understand what's happening right now and the pressures that practices are under from a financial standpoint. And so you have the cost of living, cost of everything going up, while our reimbursement, if you're utilizing insurance, has significantly gone down over the years. We talk about this every year. We had another 2.8% reduction in our overall Medicare reimbursement this year, which trickles down to all insurances. We continue to have practices that sign contracts to get paid less than what it costs to do business. And so we're sort of, shooting ourselves in the foot when now the only option that you have is to increase volume in order to offset and meet demands that you might have from a revenue and a bottom line standpoint. And then you've got your generation, this generation who is looking for, and autonomy is earned. Let's just start there, right? So, but you're coming into a place where there's not a lot of time to do mentorship because you're having to treat a boatload of patients. So, the mentorship component that people are looking for isn't always there. And so what do? You have a lot of practices that are now moving to more cash-based practice, or, which is great, moving towards technology to help offset some of those administrative burden issues, where this is really where we're going. Again, a little bit of misalignment, because although this generation is very in tune with technology, they still don't want to lose that patient-provider interaction. And this is where, hopefully AI is really, and it's showing up in a lot of different platforms to hopefully solve some of that problem, where you've got the ambient, you've got other types of technology that are coming in to hopefully reduce the administrative burden, but still allow us to have that secret sauce of us as physical therapists that we get to do so much better than everyone else is put hands on patients, have that interaction, that human interaction that both patients and clinicians are craving.
Yeah. A lot of the people we'll call them pundits, right? The Gary V's of the world are saying the pendulum only swings two different ways, right? Bell bottoms were super cool, and then they were not. And then they were cool again. And then guess what happened after that? Then they were not, right? So the world had to go digital, everything, out of necessity. Guess what's going to happen next? We're going to crave that other thing. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you're saying, how can we keep the efficiencies of a scribe or some of this technology without losing this other stuff, as I rub my hands together on a podcast to show you that humanity part that we like to sort of plant our flag in. And so how do we gain without losing, which is a good way to think about it. So do you think with the disconnect between clinicians and leaders, it's probably a little bit all three, right? So it depends, right? It's always in the middle. Is it communication? Is it incentive structure? Is it just plain generational? Are we talking past each other? Like where can someone capitalize? Like, this information is good, But if you were to
Yeah.
wave a wand, if you weren't working where you are, if you weren't sitting where you are and you were running a clinic, how would you operate? How would you operationalize this information? What would you do with it?
Well, the first step is to take a moment to listen, right? And not just be autocratic and think that you know everything, that this is how you're going to do it in your practice out of the gate. Really, at this point in time, clinicians and which are mostly in the younger generation or the generation below leaders, you got to take time to listen. It can't be command and control.
Yeah.
That autonomy, wanting autonomy is real. Coming to the table with good ideas is definitely happening, but you got to take time to listen and before you're acting. So having a more of a distributed leadership sort of model, if you will, to where you want people to feel like they have um, some options to provide ideas, like they are in it with you,
Yeah.
not just working for you. And so that sort of shared decision making when it comes to different possibilities in a practice, I think is really important at this point in time, and that sort of bridges that generational gap. And then also every individual is motivated differently, and we
Yep.
can't forget that it's not just a blanket thing where all PTs just want. And this is, I think, part of the malalignment is that perhaps in our day, like salary was the thing. And I will also say, how did we get more salary in the past? Was you had to move into administrative roles. And what we're seeing in this report is they love treating patients. They don't want
Right.
to have to only move to administration and away from patient care to earn more money. So how do we create, a better compensation model around being just an excellent, excellent clinician? Um, and there's a lot of issues that are swirling around how this can be done, and also why it's very difficult to be done. Mainly because of the cost of education right now, people are
Yeah.
coming out with higher debt loads than ever before, and they are looking for paths and avenues to be able to make more money, right? And right now, that's just really hard to do when your reimbursement is not changing. As a matter of fact,
Yeah.
it's going in the wrong direction, right? So being creative in ways that you can reward and allow people to become better clinicians. And at the same time, like, we have got to continue to advocate, not just for more pay, but how do we change compensation with regard, like, why do people get residency program or go through a residency program? You're not making more money. Somebody who's residency trained definitely is not making any more money in the eyes of an insurance company,
Yeah.
right? And so how do we change our model to actually improve and advocate for outcomes, right? If you're going through residency, the thought process should be that you actually could treat patients better, whether it's more efficiently or with better outcomes. How
Yep.
do we get to a place where we're actually compensated for the outcomes that we're actually having with patients, rather than just everybody gets paid the same no matter what level of PT you are?
Oh, I had a post on LinkedIn last week that said this. And of course, I like to poke the bear. My job is not to be right. My job is to ask people questions and have them let's discuss, as they did on a great Saturday Night Live skit with Mike Myers, Coffee Talk. And the thing that I was shining a light on was you could give poor care or great care and you get paid the same. And that's and that's not fair. And that sucks. One thing I'll say that I think I've noticed is if I were to ask someone early in their career, describe or give me like a line, a great leader. And I think how I would have described a great boss 15 years ago would have been they're a great leader, they're very knowledgeable, and all those things still should be true. What I hear more often is I feel like they get it. And that sounds like a dumbing down of a compliment. But what I hear is that they get, when someone says they get it, what they mean, what I take that from meaning is they get me. Like when you sit down with a really good leader and you walk out, you're like, they get it. it's like whatever I said, they heard me, they understand it, then hopefully they're going to operationalize that. And that's when people buy in. That's when people feel like, I don't need autonomy. I want autonomy in my little sphere, like with my patients or my tasks. I want to feel like whatever I'm doing matters to the ship too, right? Or where the ship is going in a direction I'd like to go into. We're on the rise here. We go in the right direction. So when I hear they get it, right? Like, why do you like your CEO, your clinic director, or your manager, anybody, your coworker? They get it. Like, that says that's a two-way thing and not a one-way. They're a great leader is great for the organization. They get it is great for both of us. And I think that's what it sounds like. That's what people are looking for. And they stick around. I don't know. The data, I would bet we could have a whole gambling thing before this, Heidi. This could be like an inside thing. We'll bet what the data is. I bet that people who feel that stay longer. That would be my guess.
Oh yeah, clinician retention for sure has so much to do with your liking people that you work with, right? That's been a staple in all of these different surveys for a long time with regard to why you stay in a position. You may even take less money on a salary basis if you really feel rewarded in the work that you're doing and the people that you're doing it with. And so when you asked, what should owners be doing? And I think at this point, it's stop assuming and just start listening. And each individual person that's in the practice might be motivated in a slightly different way. And, as a leader, we need to be thinking about people as individuals and not necessarily just as a conglomerate group.
I mean, I'm nodding along almost to the point where I'm hurting my neck because, like, when I was in radio, there were people at the radio station that sold ad time and they drove BMWs and I didn't, but I got to go to work every day and play rock music loud and give away beer and concert tickets. And I was elated to do so. Like I would have crawled through a mile of broken glass to keep doing that. Because the different things mattered to different people, and the people that pay attention to those will keep the better people, and better meaning a better fit for you and them when it's a two-way street. Man, and I never realized this. I ran a radio station. I was just a radio guy. How much replacing someone costs. Because where I worked, I had 50 people outside that would have, again, crawled through broken glass to take the job for less money. But that's not always the case. I never understood that until I came to healthcare and realized what replacing a good or bad employee actually costs and how that can hurt an organization or a business.
Absolutely, especially in our world of relationships, right? So somebody who's been with you, it has physician relationships, have community relationships, those types of things. Yeah. If they go away, and also I'm not saying that you have to retain people just because they are, the rainmaker in your organization, especially if they're not a culture fit. All of those things. I'm definitely not saying that, but for sure, those things need to be rewarded. And again, reward is very personal. And one of the things that I've been really talking about is looking at when we talk about compensation, which includes salary, you look at the total compensation. And this is an education for new grads and early, recent grads as well, getting their first jobs, that it's not. Yes, you might motivate it for salary, and you definitely need to look at that when you have a student debt you have to pay off. I get it. Like, you're looking at how much cash is coming in, right? And so if that's true, right, you also need to say, okay, well, if they're going to pay me up front, I need to also recognize that maybe some of these other benefits, healthcare is important, right? But maybe you're not going to get the healthcare that you only have a $25 copay, right? Maybe you're going to have to pay a little bit more on the deductible side. Your PTO, everybody needs PTO, but those are some things that might be negotiable as well. CEUs, right? If we're going to pay you a bunch of cash up front, maybe we're not going to pay you as much for the number of CEUs. Like, the full compensation package has to be looked at. And those are things for me that you're able to sort of dial up or change I like the a la carte method, right? There's obviously some bottom line, baseline things like healthcare. I think is really important for everyone to have the option, and it's mandatory most of the time at a certain size of the business. But you can dial things up and down across a line, right? When you're thinking about, let's just say, $85,000 of total compensation. Maybe that equals a higher number of salary up front, and maybe it means a little bit less of CEU funds on the backside of that. Maybe in 2 years, when you have paid down your debt and you're much more about trying to be a specialized clinician, maybe those CEU dollars mean a lot more to you, right? So maybe we add more there rather than just upping your salary. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think clinic owners need to be a little bit more creative when they think about total compensation. You just can't throw everything at people because the research on choice, like when you give people too many choices, they're like, they don't stop. And they're going to index on wanting everything.
Sure. I guess this goes into as a business owner, and Marcus Lemonis is someone I found later in life. He's like, if you don't know your numbers, I won't work with you. Because if you don't know what it costs to do all these things, you can't have that conversation that Heidi's talking about, which is, okay, so you value flexibility. You can't work with me unless I'm flexible because of your family situation. Okay. But you understand that now you working less hours for me, you're willing to take less salary. If the answer is yes, you have to know your numbers of what each one of those hours is worth so you both win. So you're able to cover that person's cost and still make margin, because the line that I stole from someone else is usually it's designed for nonprofits, but it's for everything. No margin, no mission, right? If there's no money coming in above what it costs to operate, there's no lights or internet. I promise I paid my internet. It was just a power outage when I cut out there. But if there is no margin, there is no mission. So you have to be smart about this data, which is almost full circle to what we're talking about is, you could have 150 KPIs, but that doesn't make them very K anymore. It's not very, you can't have 150 keys. That's a bad key. That's a bad key ring. Understanding, knowing your numbers has to be step one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll just say on the flip side of that, the new grads and the clinicians who just want to jump to the next place because they're willing to pay you, $5 more an hour.
Costs you.
It does cost you. It costs you as an employer, but it also is going to cost you as a provider. Because there are trade-offs for that extra $5 an hour. Maybe you're going to see an extra three patients in a day, right? And so really understanding what motivates you, coming to the table with your truths, like, hey, these are the things. Are we a good match? But not in recognition of, hey, if I want to see less patients in a day, I'm going to have to do some sort of trade-off on what my total compensation might be.
Yeah. You said that technology used to feel like a trade-off, efficiency versus human. And I feel like we're not there anymore. You've said it's no longer true. Feels like these things are now pointed in the same direction, not against each other. What changed to get us here?
Well, that's the promise, and that's what we're starting to see early with as AI is starting to mature, and more platforms and more technology is coming into the healthcare space, and it's looking more like, at least I think the hope is, and I think we're in, like I said, in the early sort of going, it's starting to show this as a relief valve for some of the documentation, some of the coding compliance burdens that, were so manual or still had to be, embedded in, but still a lot of manual process involved in it. Even scheduling today is getting a little bit easier. I think I know everybody wants the auto scheduling, but as we know, especially if you are taking insurances, how complicated that can be, especially with multiple therapists in a practice with specialty on each one. But these are the types of things that we're looking to AI to really start to relieve ourselves of the percentage of time that we're spending on this administrative work and allowing us to have more time for actual patient care.
Yeah. It's always a trade-off. What's the pain that you're alleviating? right? I mean,
Yep.
Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross taught us that someone's being sold in any conversation. You're either selling them or they're selling you on why you're not. And I think when you try to overcomplicate, and it's not to minimize everything to a sale, but are you helping me better, faster, or cheaper? Because better, faster, and cheaper can make things easier for me. I can do more or do less in certain situations. And it feels like I got a Palm Pilot when I was in college. And I realized how many little clicks with the little fake pen it took me to put someone's phone number in a book. I was like, I can write this down with the pen faster. Or the famous story about how the Americans tried to figure out how to make a pen work in space. And they're like, to the Russians, like, how'd you figure it out? And they're like, we used a pencil. And they were like, oh yeah, like we overcomplicated that. It feels like the tech isn't a pen in space anymore. It's even simpler than the pencil now. And that's when we start working in the same. I don't work for the tech works for me now.
Yeah, I mean that's where we're headed. I think it's definitely it's happening and it's learning. And I think what you're going to see in the next 18 months or so is a real shift in our ability to be a little more hands off of the computer itself. And a lot of things will be happening where you're in edit mode and you're in review and assessment mode versus having to do the subjective, the objective inputs. Those will be collected as you're doing them. And then our brains really need to be functioning at the highest levels in the assessment and even plan for this particular individual and patient who's sitting in front of you. Even the concepts of clinical decision support, right? In learning how you do things with this particular diagnosis and this patient's past medical history. I mean, it's really going to be really freaking cool.
Yeah.
Some of the things that are going to be coming out here and already are starting to show up in EMRs and other platforms today.
I agree. Looking, it feels like it's the Wild West. It's like the Oklahoma Sooners out there staking claims, right? Like the minute really AI became operational, there was 150. Everybody was doing it, right? Here's this scribe, just focusing on scribe. And I said I remember talking to someone who wasn't in healthcare, and they said, "Well, how will this change how people do things?" And I said, "I think probably pretty minimally, because I think we're already thinking about these things. They're already in our head. Then we need to breathe and then type them out. Now we necessarily don't." I said the only way I could see it is you need to be more of a verbal processor. So now instead of having to sit down and type it out, if you're verbally processing while it's going on, you don't have to do that initial first pass. You are doing it. You're doing it with without your hands.
Right. And Jimmy, there's going to be growing pains. Don't get me wrong, because, people will want to, and, we see this already happening in colleges and in high schools and such, where, people want to be completely hands off and allow, the AI to write things for them and to do things for them. And, it's going to make mistakes. It's not perfect. And it is still a computer without feelings and without empathy.
Yep.
And so, really making sure that we continue to be a part of the plan, be a part of, and really exercise our knowledge into that assessment. And, just like anything else, bad inputs equal bad outputs. And so if you're not getting the front end correct, those things are going to spit out bad things on the other side. And so there's going to be some learning that as we move through this process, but it looks very promising in terms of that relief valve as people are looking at it from an administrative burden side.
So let's flip. So a minute ago, we talked about, hey, if you're a leader, you said your advice would be listen.
Yeah.
If you're a clinician working with someone, what would your advice for them be who maybe you feel that unheard, disconnected from leadership? What would your advice be for them? If the advice for the leader is listen, what's the advice for the clinician?
Yeah, for the clinician, it's really formulate and understand what your motivation factors are and what is important to you, to articulate. It's not to complain.
Yeah.
Like, it's take action. in a way that means that, hey, here's the things that motivate me. Here's what I want. Because I think that when you think about the goal of what both the clinic leader and a clinician, at the end of the day, we want to treat patients and we want to get people better. Like those two things, while I think the clinic owner has to always also think about financial, and I want to make money doing it, right? Which is fine. We're majority of us work in for-profit companies. The thing I would say about from the clinician side is understand, be able to articulate what motivates you, but also understand what you don't know. And when you don't know and you don't understand the business side, take the time to spend some time with that clinic owner to really understand what it takes to run a business in today's market. It is not freaking easy.
Nope.
And so while you may understand and all of the, student debt and all the things that are happening on the clinician side and new grad side, like just take a pause to really understand and respect what has transpired and allowed this clinic owner to be in business, to have had success over time, but understand that the market forces today and the constraints that we're under are significantly different and causing a lot of stress, right?
Yeah. I'll give a nod to one of the organizations I used to work for, because we just assume if it's a big company, the people at the top are swimming around Scrooge McDuck style in pools of money. And I'm like, I got to be honest with you, man, that ain't it. I worked for Fox Rehab for a while, and I wasn't clinic, I was communications, but they were overly transparent in my viewpoint in how do we decide what to pay you? The goal is not to pay you as little as possible. The goal is pay you as much as possible so we can still support this. And they would show like where the dollar when the dollar comes in, how many different ways does it need to be sliced before we get to you? Yeah. And having, I think, more of that that transparency and explanation kept the right people around. If you're not willing to understand that, I can't make more money fall out unless more money's falling in. And let me show you. I know if you're like, but these are millions of dollars. I'm like, yes. Divided by how many different things or people. When you say you want a new laptop every year, it's a new laptop times 1,000 clinicians. Or when you hit a certain level, now your administration has to get wider, and why that costs something. And these are simple things, but not easy to understand. But when you can start to understand them, I think the people. And this isn't a communication principle. When there's no information, we fill it in with bad information.
Right.
Well, then there's something nefarious, right?
Yep. When
you over communicate, those are the people who are better leaders. They're not actually better or worse. They understand that no information breeds contempt. Somebody gave me a statistic. Most mid-size organizations under communicate by a factor of 400%. So when you think you've said it, you're still 400% behind, right? When you think it's been understood, we know how it is, just hearing it is not understanding. So I think from the leader side, it's over communicate, but from the clinician or the employee side, it's ask, show up, lean in to understand. And then magically those people just wind up doing better in their roles.
Absolutely. And they feel connected. They feel like they understand, they know where the business is going, they understand what the pain points are. So you're all in it together. It's a we, not just an I, right? And so when you actually have that type of culture and you do get that transparency. Now, I will say you made a good point that it's not just transparency, because in the presence of too much information that is not understood, that can also, when you see these millions of dollars, then you can make assumptions about things because you don't understand. Well, if you look at the bottom line, post all of those expenses,
right?
Well, maybe that number's not in the millions anymore.
Correct.
Right. And so it's really important to also provide that education in the spirit of transparency comes education as well.
Yep. Final question that we'll do parting shot, right? So parting shot, I'll set you up for this one. I won't just leave you open-ended. You've said the profession is really at an inflection point. You don't do these reports just to look back, right? That's nice to have. You do them so we understand now and 5 years from now. So I'll just pick an arbitrary point in the future. 5 years from now, what decisions are we making today that will actually help us, whether the profession becomes more human-centered or more commoditized? I mean, where you sit has never really been at a company level. You've always sort of looked at it from professional level, because where the profession goes, we all goes, right? So what is the decision or decisions that we can start to make now that can make that the future is more human and less a commodity?
Well, let's just start first on producing providers. We know we have a shortage, and we have the lowest amount of applicants to our PT programs that we ever had. And we must make sure that we are continuing to have the highest level of expectation of our educational system for the DPT program that we can have. That means that people are getting educated to be able to come out and immediately start treating patients and not believe that they still need to go to residency program or have additional education. And granted, everybody needs to continue to learn. I'm not saying that, but you should be able to come out and feel confident in being able to practice in an environment where you can have your own caseload. Yeah. Out of school, right? And have high expectations for those clinical affiliations and leaders that and CIs that are treating or that are teaching, right, at the highest level. So first and foremost, cost of education, there's a lot of things going on in the front end. We're reaching lower and lower into the applicant pool. With people, having difficulty graduating, having difficulty passing the licensure exam that first time. So we've got to really focus on the front end of the clinicians that we're producing in order to offset the shortage and also maintain the level of expectation that not only patients have, but we should have for for therapists coming into the profession. So that's first. Second, we're moving into the decisions we're making to, move into a world of technology because we want to offset the administrative burden. We have to make sure that we don't lose that human-centered care, that we are absolutely, still the best provider at giving, where we are able to see the patient for, multiple visits. We develop those types of relationships. If we go down the digital first, PTs as a human are only augmenting the care of a digital first, I think that's wrong. And we're going to lose ourselves and become a commodity in a very short period of time. Yeah. You've got the Hinges and the Swords and all of these that are putting digital first, and we're just an adjunct to the AI. We're going to lose our ability to maintain ourselves as a primary physician. On the positive side of us, I do really believe in us we're putting a lot more emphasis on being primary care clinicians in the MSK world, and I think we need to be doubling down on that. Similarly to us having a shortage of DPTs, primary care there is a dearth of primary care providers, and we need to be filling that gap and elevating ourselves to be able to meet those demands of what is happening. More people want our services, and yet we just don't have enough clinicians right now to be able to do that. So by trying to elevate ourselves to get those patients cared for quicker, I think is really important. And then just on the final side, I mean, I do believe, the adoption of the AI models and the transformation of EMRs into like what PT, bringing in AI to alleviate some of the administrative burden is going to allow us to have more time for patients that more human-centered care that is so critical to our profession. So those are the decisions I think we're making all in the right direction at the moment.
Yeah, and we need to be, they need to be decisions we're consciously making. These can't be nice to haves. These are to be directions we're moving in. You cannot leave until you at least give a nod about Rising Tide. People need to know, more people need to know about it. So let's talk about that for a hot second before we let you get out of here.
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. It's a foundation I started 6 years ago now. It's
Wow.
actually pretty incredible. I know we've had 93 scholars go through our
Wow.
program. We've deployed $1.2 million in scholarship funding. We had such a blast at CSM recently where we got to see a lot of our scholars in person. Not only that, but they are shining stars in our profession up on stage. I think if you saw the generation presentation, then you saw two of our scholars, Holly Brown and Devin Morris, up there on stage doing an incredible job presenting. So I could not be prouder and feel more rewarded in this sort of give back era of my professional life as a physical therapist. And anyone, yeah, and anybody, we're growing. We're offering 20 scholarships per year for DPT students and 5 scholarships a year for residency students. And so we're obviously always looking to partner with anyone and everyone who is, on this, wants to join in this mission, help build our community, whether it's through donation or sponsorship. We're always looking for more folks to join in to support the mission. So thanks for the opportunity, Jason.
Who's the right person to apply for Rising Tide? Like, who are you? Who's a great fit?
Yeah, so any DPT student from an underrepresented background who is a first year or you're about to start your first year in DPT school, you've been accepted to a DPT program, or a rising second year. Our application cycle for our CRUST scholarship, which is worth up to $14,000 per year, up to the 2 to 3 years that you're in your program, will open on April 1st and close at the end of May.
Okay. And then who's the, are you teaming with programs like you just mentioned for tuition remission or donations or both, or?
Yeah, so we actually provide scholarships for those that win our scholarships through a selection process. And it doesn't matter what program you're in, as long as it's an accredited DPT program. And so we actually, scholarship the student to the program. And, obviously always working with programs to share our information, share our data and feedback that we get from our students to help them understand the burden of the cost of education. But yeah, we actually just we provide scholarships, and I don't want to say the word just, because we're so much more than that. Even everyone who applies into our program, and even if you don't win the scholarship, becomes part of our community. We just launched a platform we call our Tide Pool, which is essentially a technology platform that allows people to network. It has all of our resources. We provide monthly webinars on all kinds of fun things, like what you just talked about. Actually, our next webinar is with Jean Shirakabad and I, and we are doing a webinar on the life cycle of a dollar. So exactly what we just talked about, we are helping to educate our students at an early time in their career to understand, how does this work? How do you actually get paid? Where do those dollars come from along the way? And what does it really mean or how do you actually talk about, your salary and where that actually comes from?
Perfect. Excellent. We'll put the information for Rising Tide as well as the report in the show notes for this. Heidi, thanks so much for coming back on, for doing this, for doing the heavy lift around the profession, and then for coming on here to talk about it with us.
Always, always a pleasure, Jimmy. Thanks so much for everything that you're doing to elevate our profession in so many different avenues. So really appreciate the time.
Thanks.
That's it for this one, but we're just getting warmed up. Smash follow, send it to a friend, or crank up the next episode. Want to go deeper? Hit us at ptpintcast.com. or find us on YouTube and socials at PT Pintcast. And legally, none of this was advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. See, Keith, we read the script. Happy now?